Hi everyone, I'm Martin Hiller and I'm the Content and Creative Director for Africa Travel Week, which comprises of Equal Africa as well as World Travel Market Africa. June marks Pride Month, and what a better way to kick off our LGBTQ travel series with today's webinar entitled Understanding and Successfully Reaching the LGBTQ Traveler. Today's webinar will help you attract this dynamic segment by giving you an overview on recent market developments and the strong relationships between LGBTQ tourism and equal rights, while also offering insights into the way destinations and businesses can work together to gain credibility with the LGBTQ plus travelers. I'm proud to present our panel today, which comprises of President and CEO of IGLTA, John Tanzella, who will kickstart the session off by unpacking the organization's key findings from their recent survey. Consultant in LGBTQ plus destination development, Peter Jordan, will then provide you with a better understanding of the segment. An award-winning LGBTQ plus travel blogger and editor of Every Queer magazine, Meg Ten Eyck, will end the discussion by providing practical ways to attract the LGBTQ traveler to your destination. We will then field your Q&As, so please send as many questions through as possible to our esteemed panel. I'm going to hand over to John, who will share some great insights. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Martin. And hello to everyone tuning in to Africa Travel Week. We enjoy at IGLTA a great partnership with Equal Africa, which is going to be launched, as you know, back in April for the first time. But we're happy to have this LGBT content included with Africa Travel Week. And we look forward to Equal Africa next year in person in 2021. So for those of you that aren't familiar with IGLTA, we've actually been around for quite a while. We were founded in 1983. We are a nonprofit global travel association. When we were founded, it was just simply 25 travel advisors and gay guest house owners here in South Florida, where I am calling in from. Today, we've grown to over 5,000 travel professionals in approximately 80 countries. We still have a very small staff, but we're spread out over 7 countries. And we're a business association, but we do support LGBTQ issues. For example, we work with the United Nations World Tourism Organization. That's the only LGBT organization that is a member of theirs. We've done 2 research projects along with Peter Jordan, who you'll be hearing from in just a moment. And they've also helped us with supporting small businesses and LGBT tourism in places where it is challenging to run a small LGBT business. So we appreciate the support of the UNWTO. The last couple of years, we've also started incorporating not just B2B projects, but B2C, because we know a lot of our tourism professionals are trying to reach the LGBT traveler. We have about 65,000 consumers that have signed up to our website for newsletters, specials. How do we promote our business members? We also provide country travel guides for information for travelers. And of course, we have a newsletter to consumers, highlighting our members with specials and offerings. We did have a convention in Africa, actually, in 2016, a global convention. It was, and still is, the largest convention we've ever held outside of North America. We had a strong African attendance, which was wonderful. It was held at the beautiful Belmond Mount Nelson Hotel in Cape Town. And plenty of pre and post options were provided for our tourism professionals and media to explore throughout Southern Africa, all the beautiful offerings there. We partnered with SATSA and ATA and ATTA and many other organizations there. We were honored to have speakers such as the Minister of Tourism, the President of Cape Town Tourism, Enver Dubny, also speakers from the UN. Of course, South African Airways and South Africa Tourism were very involved. And from that success, our membership in Southern Africa has been thriving, and we do a lot of promotions to Africa. We raised the profile of our offerings there to travelers and travel advisors. We opened an office actually in Cape Town with Martina Barth. Many of you probably know her. And we also have a volunteer ambassador who's been very engaged for many years, David Ryan. So now I'll pivot over to the consumer survey because we know from surveys that LGBT community travels more frequently on leisure travel than non-LGBT travelers. So we want to look into this given the global pandemic and how this could affect your business. And we hope this will help you in planning your strategies to targeting business travelers, leisure travelers for your business. And I believe you'll also agree that this does show the resiliency and loyalty of our community for travel. And all of this larger research project is available on our website under the category of research. But what I'd like to do is show you a few slides here in just a second, but just to give you some methodology and some information. We recently surveyed members of our community to gauge their attitudes towards leisure travel in the face of COVID pandemic, and responses came from approximately 15,000 members of our community, with the largest representation from the United States, Canada, Brazil, France, and Mexico. So we do have specifics for those countries specifically as well as a global overview of the responses. And the survey was conducted between late April and mid-May through our networks, which we used our social media, our business members, our media partners, and support from our IGLTA Foundation to gather the responses. And the survey was conducted in 6 languages, including English, Spanish, Italian, French, Portuguese, and Japanese. 80% of the respondents were between the ages of 25 and 64, and 56% of the respondents have their primary residence in the United States. So it's a really strong research project if you in the United States market. One of the key findings we found was that 2/3 of the respondents said they would feel comfortable traveling again for leisure before the end of this calendar year. So that's really exciting. September and October were the most popular choices. So I'm trying to see about sharing some of these slides for you. One second, I apologize. I assume you can see these? Martin?
Yeah, I can see them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this slide tells you that nearly half of our respondents said they would not change their types of destinations. So this really reflects a high degree of destination loyalty and uncertainty of COVID travel. And then this one kind of highlights what I was talking about before. You know, would you feel comfortable traveling again for leisure this year? And you can see on there September, the most likely travel month, and October. This takes a look at the travel as far as flights, and you know, being that this was done over many countries, you know, a 6-hour flight could still be a domestic flight in the United States or Canada, but if you're in France or Mexico, for example, that could be an international flight. But you can see the short haul, which is 3 hours overnight, quite lengthy travel at the time of this study, which would be the end of the year. And then last, I'd like to show this slide about travel patterns of staying in hotels. As you can see, traveling domestically, 57%, so that's quite strong. And again, that's domestically within whatever country they were taking the survey in. But international travel is quite large too, 29%. And then here's some activities that we took a look at. As you can see, attending a Pride event or any type of LGBTQ plus festival was quite high at 33% before December. But even taking a cruise, although it shows 13%, that's quite high. The amount of cruises throughout the year is pretty significant of the 15,000 respondents before December. A lot of cruise lines have delayed their cruises until this fall, but it does show the propensity of LGBT travelers to get on a cruise again. So those are my notes. I hope it's helpful. Very overview. You're welcome to go to our website to find more information on this research project of the survey, as well as many other research projects we have on our website. But at this point, I'd like to hand it over to my dear friend and esteemed gentleman, Peter Jordan. Thank you, Martin.
I just wanted to say from my side, congratulations to you and all of the team for your work on this over the last few months. I know it's been a particularly difficult time, but businesses really appreciate this kind of support, and this is exactly the kind of thing that they need to be able to plan ahead at the moment. So congratulations for doing that really timely research, and I'm sure, like everybody else, I'm going to be taking a closer look at it over the coming weeks and seeing how that pans out. So I'm going to pick up then where John left off, and well, I wanted to follow on from that by saying that I have wonderful memories too of joining that convention that John mentioned in Cape Town in 2016. I was actually due to come and present in early April, but as we all know, that wasn't possible. But I really do look forward to coming back to South Africa very soon to also see how LGBTQ travel is progressing there, and to share also that kind of knowledge with many other destinations in Africa. But until then, I wanted to bring you a slice of part of a type of keynote presentation that I often do for destinations and businesses to help them give a bit of an introduction to this market. And this is part of a lot of work that I do. I'm a consultant, and I do a lot of strategy and research work throughout the year, usually helping countries with their destination master planning, with consumer research also, and looking at consumer trends and turning these into actionable insights for destinations and businesses. And but I also work very closely with this company, Topography, where we do a lot of this work together. Now, many of you, though, may have heard of one of these reports over the years, and this is part of a very strong collaboration that I've been involved with over the years. It's been an honor to be part of this. A collaboration, as John mentioned, between the United Nations World Tourism Organization and the International Gay and Lesbian Travel Association. And this really was, I suppose, a landmark in LGBTQ travel, when the first report that you can see here at the top left of the screen, the Global Report on LGBTQ Tourism, was launched in 2012. And then a subsequent volume of that was launched in 2017. I was very happy to have worked on these projects, to have brought them together to publication. And I understand from UNWTO that it's among the most downloaded reports they have today. I mention these because these are all free downloads that you can take and read in your own time to really get a broader understanding of how the market works. And I hope that they will open your eyes, as they have to so many people around the world, as to how this market works and how they can get work more closely with it. I do a lot of work throughout the year also in presenting, doing workshops as well with different organizations, and looking at this market from different angles and helping people to get to broaden their understanding of it too. So, but here we are today, and as I said, I'd like to give you just a bit of a taster of the main trends and issues that are occurring in the market. And give you a few pointers on where to start. And I hope that will be a really good springboard to pass over to Meg after this presentation, who's going to really share some of her detailed insights. Meg's a real specialist in this market and really understands from a practical point of view how marketing works and how it should work. And I can't think of anyone better to give you those kind of deeper recommendations. But I'd like to then get started then, before we move any further, by making sure that we're all on the same page, and to ensure that we have a full understanding of what do we mean by LGBTQ tourism. Now, I'm going to share with you a definition which we included in the 2018 Handbook on LGBTQ tourism from the European Travel Commission just a few years ago. And it has 4 elements that I'd like to highlight. First of all, we say that engaging with the LGBTQ traveller should in essence be about creating a safe and welcoming environment. And I want to just pause there, because here we're talking first of all about the product and the experience that we create. Before we get onto the marketing, we have to think very carefully about the type of place we are inviting people to, the type of product that we're creating, the way that people are received. This is it's all about making sure that we can create a safe environment, one that is secure, where people feel safe, and of course that it's welcoming and that people get a genuinely warm welcome when they come and visit. Of course, if we work in a hospitality business, I often hear that people say, well, of course, everyone's welcome in my business. But we want to ensure that that welcome is a genuine one, and that people genuinely feel respected and welcomed from staff who understand their individual needs. And then we get on to communication, so the marketing side of it, communicating this with understanding, so showing that we understand the market when we do marketing, and that we've taken some time to understand the different needs of different travellers within the market, and of course that we're doing this with genuine, heartfelt respect. So this is a good question. Is the market becoming bigger, or is it more visible? Because you often read that LGBTQ+ travel spending is growing year after year. Sometimes that might crop up if you're reading through the travel news. Well, personally, my take on this is that it's just becoming more visible, and that is a very welcome thing. Why is it becoming visible? Well, thankfully, because visibility is greater LGBT visibility is advancing acceptance around the world. This is a virtuous circle if it works properly. As people feel more comfortable with coming out and being open to their friends, their family, perhaps to their work, in their workplaces, and elsewhere, also people in the media, people in the sports world, people in politics. As this visibility increases, the process of acceptance increases, and then of course people feel more comfortable then to come out, and it creates a virtuous circle. And thankfully over the past I'd say the last 10-15 years, this has accelerated, as for example same-sex marriage has been introduced in more countries around the world, and people genuinely feel comfortable and they feel accepted, and they see that recognized and valued by society. This is true in developed countries, but also increasingly in developing countries. There's been slow and steady progress in advancing LGBTQ+ equal rights, and to certainly help the process overall for people to feel more comfortable in their local surroundings and when traveling too. And it's also very true that this process has created greater visibility. People feel as there's a greater political constituency of friends and family, as people become more aware of the issues that LGBTQ+ people face in daily society. There's friends and family also feel very sympathetic to these issues and very interested in them, and they want to ensure that when they travel on the places that they spend their money with are places that genuinely care for their LGBTQ+ brothers and sisters. Let me then just give and when we rounding off this section where we're talking about the definition of the market and understanding it more closely, this is another graphic which you will see if you take a closer look at the handbook on LGBTQ destination marketing and development from the European Travel Commission. If we take a look at the top circle, they're divided. I suppose that we've taken the organization of the market and put it into three distinct areas. First of all, there are business services, so industry associations like the IGLTA is a very good example of that. Trade fairs like WTM Africa is a good example of that, exhibitions, as well as the many media, PR, advertising groups that have a close interest in the market. Travel writers and influencers, and Meg has of course got a lot of experience there. Consultancy and research, people like me who work in that area. These are people who of course serve the bottom two circles. Let's take a look at the bottom right hand circle, B2C LGBTQ. So these will be businesses whose focus is more than half of their business is focused purely on the LGBTQ+ market. These can be inbound or outbound tour operators, sometimes chartered cruises, like a gay cruise, for example, as well as commercial events and festivals, for example, Circuit Festival in Barcelona, or obviously there's many others as well around the world, as well as online and offline media. And on the left, of course, we have what we would call mainstream businesses. So these could be large hotel groups or airlines that have a real interest in the market, and are very keen on making LGBTQ+ travelers welcome. So at this stage, I just wanted to bring to our attention, I don't have enough time to go into a huge amount of depth today, but I just wanted to bring to the surface some of the main issues and trends that are good to know about in the LGBTQ+ market today. And I think it's important really that we start by recognizing the big one. We can't really, it's important to take this head on. And we have to recognize that also in the LGBTQ+ market, disruption is going to occur. It's occurring now, but hopefully this could also give rise to a period of reinvention where we see destination businesses working much more closely together than they have in the past and reinventing themselves for the world that is post-COVID. Of course, we have to recognize too that businesses and consumers are feeling vulnerable right now. This is a tough time for many, and many in the LGBTQ+ community sometimes, unfortunately, suffer more than others, and we need to recognize that. And especially businesses who cater to the market, they need support, guidance, and reassurance. That's why it's so important, the research that the IGLTA has done for its membership. It's important to recognize this and of course try and work together to try and find our way through this out the other side. And I suppose one of the biggest things that we need to be aware of then is that in order to book with confidence, consumers do need information and advice. And that comes not just down to the inspiration side, but also from a practical point of view. People need to know what type of protocols accommodation businesses are putting in place, what are cancelling or refund policies. It's not very exciting. I know this is the nitty-gritty, but this applies to everyone. And these are the type of steps that we'll all have to take in order to be able to help consumers book with more confidence and see that recovery start to return. But as I said, I like to try and see the opportunity through this. I'm trying to be a natural optimist, and it's not easy recently, if we're honest. But I have to say, it's been really interesting already to see how different destinations have started to pitch themselves to the LGBTQ+ market in a new way, and often bringing to the fore different experiences, especially outdoor experiences and activities that they might not have shown so much in the past. And this is where I believe that there could be a really interesting opportunity for businesses to ensure that for destinations to get businesses working more closely together and being creative in the way that they approach this market. This is a real opportunity, I think, for reinvention. And I think also many destinations, as they seek to appeal to new groups of travelers, could see an opportunity with this market too. So therefore, when it comes to education, partnerships and collective action, having worked in tourism policy and research now for over a decade, I've heard the words collaboration, partnerships on many, many occasions. But I feel that in this post-COVID world, they won't just be desirable, they'll be absolutely essential if we're to work together to ensure that consumers have confidence, to ensure that our protocols are standardized across the board, and that people feel comfortable enough to travel again, and that when they travel, they'll be given a genuinely warm and friendly welcome. And that applies just as much to the LGBTQ+ sector as it does to other segments of the market. So I thought it'd be useful then to find out what else is going on in the market. Perhaps these are some issues which it's useful to have on your radar when you're approaching this market. And first of all, well, this is absolutely a clear one. Now, I have to be honest, diversity has always mattered. Diversity, giving a voice to those who traditionally haven't had a strong enough voice. Ensuring that people are properly represented and that they feel represented by the companies that want to approach them. These have always been important issues. If we're honest, the LGBTQ+ LGBTQ+ world and the community has not always represented, for example, people of color and in the way that it should have done. And this is all coming to the fore now, and hopefully we're seeing an opportunity for real change here as well. Why do I mention that? Well, because this is extremely important. It's important to us all, but especially if we look to the future, to younger travelers. This is from some research that was done just last year in the UK market, which is an important outbound market globally. And we can see this extremely strong level of support that we have here, for example, for transgender equality, for gender equality as well, and for marriage rights. This is just to underline the fact that we have to look ahead. We have to look at who's going to be traveling in the future, and we understand that all of this is a process. It's very political too, but these are things which our younger consumers feel very strongly about, and they also want to know, as we can see here. Well, of course, we can also, there's a reason why the letters are painted in this way along Hollywood Boulevard in LA. And I think that this picture speaks volumes for the type of world that people are desperate to see in the future. And so I suppose I just want to sort of make a bit of a brief conclusion to that point, to say that diversity really does matter in every sense. It's always mattered to ensure that we give people proper visibility. I know that Meg will be able to explain well, and she can put it into words much better than I can, the fact that women, the lesbian market, has been long underrepresented when it comes to marketing materials, when it comes to product development, when it comes to events, and that actually presents a real opportunity. But it's important because when we look ahead, our youngest travelers, the people who are going to be traveling, who we want to create loyalty from, really do care about this issue, and they want to know what you as a company are doing to advance it, and that's why it's important to be visible around these topics. It's also important to bear in mind that the whole world of sustainability, the impact of tourism on the environment and on local communities hasn't gone away. Sure, destinations need to recover. We need to see visitors arriving again and spending again. It's very important, of course, to underpin economic development. But the world of the impact that tourism has on destinations, in the last few years, we've learned so much about what tourism does to places in good and bad ways. And it's important that from an LGBTQ perspective, we ensure that visitor spending genuinely has a stronger social impact than it has in the past. This is something that I believe very firmly in. And it's important that we demonstrate the real value that LGBTQ plus tourism brings to destinations. So it's important for all of us, as we work together and we seek to attract visitors, we can ask that final question on this slide. How can we ensure an even greater social impact for LGBTQ plus travel? So I'm just going to round off with some sort of key conclusions, which I hope will be a bit of a springboard as to where we're going next with Meg's presentation. And just a few pointers, very simple. Where do I start if I want to get to know this market better? First of all, is to know the market, and the people who work in this market, who have many years of experience in it, will tell you that that experience was not wasted. It's very important to really put in that time and the energy to really understanding it well. And the IGLTA is a very good place to start with that. You're here today listening to this webinar, and that's also a very good place to start. So there are industry events and webinars throughout the travel industry that you can join. IGLTA website is a really good place to start as well. The research reports that I mentioned can be found there too. Second one, if I can summarize this as simply as possible, it's to be sincere. We're not just here for a couple of weeks or a couple of months to see how it goes. Your engagement with the LGBTQ plus market should really be an engagement for the long term, and do that with sincerity. First of all, by listening and learning, understanding the market, as I said before, by working with your staff to ensure that your staff understand why we're doing this, and that your own LGBTQ plus staff feel valued and part of this conversation and part of this strategic shift. And of course, when it comes to the marketing side, that we are using carefully considered and very authentic content. And I know that Meg's going to have a few words to say about that too. And finally, I can read this properly, I think this is my final closing message, and it couldn't be simpler, is as we go forward in these coming months, coming years, we know it's going to be tough. And that's why I call on everyone who's listening to this today to ensure that as they go forward and when we aim towards a strong, sustainable recovery, that we look after our LGBTQ plus employees, our local businesses, especially our small businesses that really need your support right now. And most of all, we take care of our local LGBTQ plus community. We engage with them, we listen to their concerns, and we give them our support. So with that, in mind, do of course get in contact with me. You're welcome to drop me a line whenever you wish, and I'm happy to help you out with these areas. And yeah, I look forward to catching up with you soon. So I am going to end my slides here, and I am going to pass over to Meg. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Meg Mike. I am just going to have a conversation with you guys. I think a lot of the issues that arise in LGBT travel are a result of a lack of understanding of the community that we're talking about and the issues that we're addressing. So just want to remind you all that the questions line are open. You can ask anything at any time, and I will stop to answer your questions. But the first point that I really want to talk about is how important it is to know the LGBT community before you start a marketing campaign and advertising towards the LGBT community. So what do I mean by that? Oftentimes the LGBT community is lumped all into representing gay white men, when the reality is LGBTQ makes up a lot of different subcommunities within a broader acronym. So gay women, for example, transgender people, LGBT people with families, people of color, people from different countries. The LGBT community is so wide, diverse, and nuanced, and a lot of folks don't realize that when they're sitting down to create their marketing campaigns and developing the content for advertising towards our community. We are so large, in fact, that some estimates say that we would, if you lumped us all together into one country, we would be the third largest GDP in the world. And also there are a lot of facts and figures around the exact difference, income disparities between the LGBT communities. One of the ones that you often see is that we're between 27 and 29% higher income than our straight and cis counterparts, and oftentimes still dual income with no kids. So we have higher spending capital, which is why we travel more, which John and Peter both mentioned in their presentations. So we know this community statistically has more money. We know that this community is extremely diverse and nuanced. We know that the LGBT community is not just coming from Western countries, but from countries all over the world. What do we do now? Well, a lot of people's first instinct is to start a marketing campaign and just slap a rainbow flag on it, put a cute little rainbow somewhere in the logo, and then we're done. But the reality is the LGBT consumer is a lot more savvy now than they ever have been, and there's a lot more expectations for businesses in order to meet their needs. One of the first questions I get asked online is this country safe for me to travel? So your audience is going to be asking you that question, and they're going to expect that you have something more to say than, yeah, of course, all of our travelers are safe, because we do know that the LGBT community has higher risk. One of those reasons is that it's still illegal to be gay in 70 plus countries and punishable by death in many still. So they're going to be looking for answers beyond, oh, cute, you put a rainbow flag up. They're going to want to know, will I be able to travel with my partner? If I bring my children on this trip, are they going to be, treated unfairly or treated differently? And being able to have an articulate answer to that response, particularly in public forums like social media, will really show that you understand the concerns of the community before they're traveling. One of the things that you can do to make sure that your staff is ready to answer these questions is to address them beforehand in professional development training. Bringing on trainers to come and talk to your staff about LGBTQ specific issues, both in marketing and in customer service, will really help you. One of the common things that we see in trainings all the time is, oh, well, I went to this hotel and I had reserved one bed and my partner and I were given two, but we were too nervous to complain, so we didn't say anything, and then we wrote a bad review on Yelp. Addressing some of those issues with your front desk staff if you are a hotelier, or if you are doing a tour service, and being able to make sure that the person is placed in the roommate situation with the person of a gender identity of their choosing is really important. And creating a space and a time to talk to your staff about some of these issues, because the reality is there's not a lot of professional settings in which you get to talk about sexual orientation and gender identity on a level that impacts your community and your customers. So with that, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about some of the things that you can do leading up to the marketing campaign. I already said training, bringing on professional development trainers, but also doing some research on staff benefits that are LGBT inclusive. Making sure that you're providing opportunities within your own company that are LGBT friendly and hiring LGBT people so that you can have kind of a system of checks and balances to make sure that what you're doing is appropriate. When you are creating a marketing campaign in particular, we want to make sure that we're marketing enough to the community so that they know they're welcome, but then also making sure that what we're saying is true. You know, if we're telling the community, you're going to be safe here, we need to be able to make sure that we're validating that as LGBT travel professionals. So when we're going through the website, the first thing people often see is the imagery. Before they even see the written content, they'll notice, you know, who is represented in the photos. Am I accepted in these photos? A huge thing right now is LGBT destination weddings. And, you know, if you go to the wedding section, does it say bride and groom? Do you have images of same-sex couples? You know, on your family part of your website, do you have image of, you know, 2 moms and 2 dads in a family dynamic? Do you see gender nonconforming people? Are there people of color within these images because they are also included in the LGBT community? We have a lot of intersectional identities. So making sure that we're putting a different, you know, people of different identities, different backgrounds, different races and ethnicities, and really showing the full scale of diversity within the community. And also using imagery that's authentic, you know, especially with the lesbian market, you often see 2, you know, straight femme models that are stood together holding hands, and, you know, you're trying to pass it off as a lesbian couple. And I've been to a lot of lesbian bars, folks. It's not going to see 2 models together, maybe in LA. It's just not a thing. And so you know, we see it and we're like, okay, nice try, but not so much. You really want to hire models from within the community who are actually representative of the community, from different identities and different backgrounds. That being said, also, you know, we also see a lot of imagery from destinations of, you know, 2 perfectly chiseled abbed gay white men holding hands on the beach, which sure, that happens, but we want to make sure that we're really diversifying our imagery and really making it authentic to the community. Otherwise, you're kind of backtracking a lot and doing disservice to your original initiative. And that being said, we talked a little bit about language, but making sure that we're using language that's inclusive, and things that are SEO friendly, search engine optimization. So when you are searching for different key terms on Google or your search engine of choice, you want to make sure that those key terms are also located on your site. So, you know, listing LGBT travel, listing, you know, LGBT family travel, same-sex travel, gay travel, all of these things in your website to make sure that your website is being indexed appropriately to what people are searching for. And any SEO expert will be able to help you with that fairly easily. Also making sure that that language is inclusive. Like I said before, not using bride and groom, but, you know, using like married couple. And that way it doesn't take away from anybody, any straight folks who are also, you know, trying to book your services or book your venue for their destination wedding. So really dialing in and making sure that all the language is inclusive and offering opportunities at your destination or at your hotel. If you're saying you're LGBT inclusive, you should have a gender neutral bathroom somewhere in the lobby available for folks. Full stop. That needs to happen. And if you don't have a gender neutral bathroom, what does that mean? So people think gender neutral, they think something really big and scary, when in reality that is just a single person restroom. That is also great for families when they're traveling and maybe they have a young child they need to change, or people with disabilities. Providing opportunities for people to address their most basic human needs is a fundamental human right. And that needs to happen in travel and tourism. Also making sure that your staff is fully versed and trained in what happens when somebody approaches the front desk and you can't identify which gender they are. Particularly in luxury travel, a lot of things are gendered, sir and ma'am, and a lot of people don't identify with either one of those, and not just transgender people, millennials too. Do not call me ma'am. So making sure that we are being respectful and acknowledging cultural differences within the LGBT community can be really important. So that brings me to social media and the whole minefield that can be social media. One of the beautiful things about the internet is that we can target specific audiences using social media targeting and tagging. Now, that being said, the LGBT community is a protected class on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So what does that mean? If you want to create a marketing campaign, you can create a photo and copy for a campaign series that only shows to a specific market. So if you wanted to advertise to the LGBT community for your Pride Month special, for example, you can do that by highlighting different interests that LGBT people may also be following. So the likelihood that there's going to be LGBT people who are following, say, the Human Rights Campaign or, a popular show on Netflix representing LGBT people is pretty high. So you can use them to segment out your market and to be able to showcase that advertisement specifically towards that community on social media. That being said, targeting isn't perfect. You're going to get people who are not in the audience in the comments. So you want to be making sure that you're heavily vetting your social media ad campaigns and checking them at least every couple hours to be able to answer questions, talk to people within the community and be able to address their concerns, but also, of course, filtering out trolls. It's just part of that, which you are doing when you're engaging in a social media marketing campaign. You can also bring on influencers to be able to talk about these images from a in-community perspective. The reality is that somebody who is a member of LGBT community is always going to be able to talk about the community more than a brand or a business. It doesn't matter really how many people on staff you have. You are representing a brand voice, whereas I'm representing myself. So if you hire LGBT influencers to come on, they can create social media marketing campaigns and create this content on your behalf that is culturally relevant, on brand for your business, and kind of relieve some of the responsibility of being able to vet and answer questions. One thing that's really helpful that brands can do is to create a style guide for LGBT influencers in how they want certain questions answered and what topics that they want addressed. If you're from a destination that is known to be a little bit more risky for LGBT travelers, maybe they want some safety talking points, some do's and some don'ts for your influencer in order to make sure that they're staying on brand for your business. And you definitely, when hiring LGBT influencers, want to make sure that you're selecting a diverse representation of the LGBT community. I speak at conferences a lot, and a lot of people will come up to me afterwards and say, I've run a successful LGBT, marketing campaign for the last 5, 10, 20 years, but where are all the lesbians? And then the second I click to their website, it's like 27 photos of, 12 couples of all gay men, and they all look exactly the same. And there's like one tiny little stock imagery down at the bottom that it could be sisters, could be mother and daughter, could be best friends. We're not really sure. And I'm like, oh, you're having a hard time reaching the lesbian audience, huh? It looks like they're a high priority on this website. And that is the reality when you're marketing to a diverse group. You have to have diverse representation. I know I'm beating a dead horse at this point, but I'm hoping if I say it 37 more times throughout this presentation, you guys will start putting women in your imagery and people of color. So please make sure that you have those folks on your staff so that you can, go and say like, well, what do you think of this? Is there anything glaringly wrong with this from your perspective as a woman, as a member of the LGBT community, as a person of color, as a traveler, and really being able to reach out to the people on your staff to help you. And if you don't have those people on your staff, hire a consulting team of people who will be able to help you and start hiring folks, because diversity makes our marketing stronger. And also lends to authenticity. It doesn't matter what marginalized your community you're coming from. If you see an advertisement that is like not quite making it, you immediately know. I recently worked with a company that is really, I'm not going to name drop, but really respected in the US, that is a clothing company. And they ran a series of Pride campaigns where they were selling, rainbow clothes for Pride. But they were not, that the campaign was mistargeted because the ad that they used was either genius or hilarious, depending on the way you look at it. So they did the ad. The image is this, woman in this outfit that has like rainbows running down the side, and the caption and the copy on the image says, "All tops 50% off." So when I saw it, I immediately burst out laughing, and I was like, they either know exactly what they're doing or they have no idea what they're doing. Either way, I screenshotted it and sent it to all my friends. That, my friends, is an effective marketing campaign. So they knew the community, they knew what they were doing. It was a little bit tongue-in-cheek. It was a joke, but if not offensive, if a straight cis person saw the advertising campaign. I thought they nailed it. Now, it also made me wonder and made me pause, like, was this deliberate or was this an accident? But it was a great advertising campaign because it made me think about it. I actually stopped scrolling on Facebook to take a screenshot, think about it, and tell other people about the campaign. And that is the best possible situation when targeting to a community. Make them laugh, make them think, make them pause, and you're going to be doing a great job. So I see like some questions coming in, and I want to address some of these questions we have. So I see a question about stock photography. Potentially, where do we find authentic imagery and resources? 10 out of 10, the best is to shoot your own campaigns. I know it's time consuming, but a great way to do that is hiring influencers, and they will shoot it for you, and it will always be less expensive to hire an influencer to do it and buy the rights to the imagery than it will be to hire models and a whole production crew. That being said, it can really be worth your time and investment to shoot your own photography using people from your own community. If that's completely out of the realm of possibility, 2020.com, that's 20 and then the word 20 spelled out, is a great, more authentic LGBT representation in stock photography. And it's cost effective, affordable. I think it's $40 a month for unlimited use of commercial free rights. And they have a wide variety of LGBT families, people of color, mixed in, and really authentic imagery that is honestly just head and shoulders above anything that I've seen that's stock anywhere else. So just to recap that, hire influencers, hire your own production company, or use 2020. I see some more, let's see. How would you say that your country, i.e. South Africa, is safe when the media is showing negative reports? What would the narrative be? That's a great question. So I actually specialize in destinations that are perceived to be anti-LGBT. And the reality is every country in the world is anti-LGBT to a certain extent. And that's because we're still a marginalized community. People will say, oh, I'm afraid to go to South Africa, but the reality is we have just as many issues in the United States, depending on where you're going. And I think really having a conversation with them about, as an American, I've never been more aware that the government is not always representative of the country or the citizenship that people have there, and being able to have frank conversations with your audience about that. And sometimes the laws haven't caught up to social policies, and sometimes we have social policies or sometimes we have the laws, but the social policies have not caught up. And so being able to be real with people and be authentic with them about, well, there are certain parts of a country that I may not recommend that you travel as a gender nonconforming LGBT person who can't pass as straight and cisgender. That's reality. And there are certain parts of a country that you would absolutely recommend. And there are a lot of safety tips that you can offer, like traveling in groups and, not wearing like openly identifying LGBT clothing if that is a concern in your area. Being able to stay in places that are for sure welcoming and affirming, or staying in places that have LGBT members on their staff, and being able to have those recommendations handy so that when you're talking to somebody from the community, you're not kind of floundering and flustering about of, oh, well, I don't really know, because that I don't really know kind of uncomfortable answer is not instilling confidence into any of your customers.
I also I just wanted to cut in there actually, because I think Meg explained it really perfectly. It occurred to me, and another broader point is about work. This is why it's useful to work with LGBT owned businesses too, because there's a lot of small business people out there who are working in countries where it's been difficult for a long time, and often they understand this reality and they're used to navigating it as well. And that can be really effective, I think, in working together. So, yeah, absolutely. And also, as Meg says, I would say to it's up to each individual operator to provide that practical information and to be able to play their part by doing their homework and understanding the local reality as well before answering. So yeah, sorry, I thought it would be handy just to give a little indication there, because I think that also relates to what IGLTA does. It brings a lot of these people together.
Yes,
It's
sure.
all about networking and getting to know the, like Meg was saying about influencers, but it's also the travel advisors. I saw a question about guides. It is all about networking and developing that database, getting your name out there. Of course, at our convention, it's a great way to network, but not everyone can attend the convention every year. So there's other avenues. We are presenting at conferences all over the globe every month. And those present opportunities for you as a small business to get to know some buyers that can also send you customers.
And then John, as well, there's just some questions that have come through that I think you can definitely answer here as well. There's been a tour guide who's been in operation for 23 years, but she doesn't seem to be able to attract any of the LGBTQ clients. And then there was something very similar with regards to a car rental agency in Neisner. I think there was also just some distortion when you were speaking in the beginning there, but I think it goes back to the whole thing with what Peter was saying and Meg. It's about really important networking and joining various associations. So, I mean, you know, if you just want to quickly recap on the International Gay Lesbian Travel Association, because there is a South African chapter, and the chapters worldwide, and I know that we do have a diverse worldwide audience listening today. So where can they find out more information and become members?
Absolutely, thank you. Our website, iglta.org, is our website, and you can get more information about the organization, what we do, and trying to help promote our members. But just to focus more on what the other panelist was saying is it is really about networking and getting engaged locally with your LGBT community there, both for business, for stock photo type things, creating your own. So it really is, in our community, it's really about networking and knowing who you can trust with your travel, with your clients' travel, and who you're promoting. So get engaged locally, get engaged with us internationally, are the first steps I would recommend.
Perfect. And then another question that's come through is basically asking, what type of segments do you think the LGBTQ plus traveler will start being interested in when they can start traveling again? Would that be adventure, nature, luxury? So I'm not quite sure. Maybe Meg, you, in your experience, might be able to answer that one better.
Yeah, well, the destinations that the LGBT community are interested in really depends on what part of the community you're talking about. LGBT travelers are, luxury travelers at higher rates, but they're also, queer women focus on adventure travel and soft adventure travel more than the other parts of the community. Of course, city destinations are always going to be relevant to everyone in the LGBT community because there is a perception that city travel is safer for our audience. So I think that we're definitely going to see LGBT people traveling before almost anyone in the, after COVID, post-COVID world. And that's for a wide variety of reasons, but you may start to see more LGBT people than you're used to in the beginning because it's going to be more of a priority. I don't know if that really answers the question. If you, Peter or John, want to add on to that.
I suppose from my perspective, so based on some of the research I've done in the past, I think the origins of LGBTQ travel are very much based around urban destinations, especially in Europe and North America. I mean, that's where the history stretches back to. But I suppose the point I want to make is that it really is as just like the population in general, is really people are traveling further and more frequently and to more diverse destinations than ever before. And thankfully, as the laws change, more parts of the world become friendlier, easier to travel with confidence. So there, as Meg said, it really is a huge variety in this. One point that stood out from the research we did in Europe, and actually we think it may be applicable to South Africa too, is the people looking to combine their trip with an event as well as some wider travel. So, for example, attending a Pride event and then using that as a platform then to travel before or after the event with their friends, with their partner, etc. Because discovering the Pride in another country over the recent years has become a really interesting way of getting to know a place, making friends, understanding how Pride is celebrated locally. So that's why I often tell people to get to know their Pride, understand the local Pride organization, get involved, provide support, and also, of course, start planning your own product around that as well, so that you can launch packages based on that. That's perhaps fun to there.
Yeah, I would just add on to everything that Meg and Peter just said is exactly true. Our community is as diverse as non-LGBT community. So there is adventure, there's eco travel, there's city travel, there's cruises, there's groups, individuals. So it's really hard to put us all into one bucket, as Meg eloquently was saying earlier. But we are seeing, in our survey that the travel post-COVID will tend to be at the beginning more local, regional type travel, and people are looking for those escapes from the city to get out into the nature and into the adventure travel. So I think that's a really good thing for Africa in particular. And again, for the tour guide, another item that he or she could consider is that on Thursdays we do a member connect call globally and within Africa, a separate one, to talk to other tourism professionals and travel writers, that you can kind of hear what people are saying, what their clients are asking for, which could be very helpful for that tour guide. So thank you.
Okay, and then I think the last question is also directed directly to the panel. It reads, I'm a member of the community based in South Africa representing various companies in African destinations. Would you agree that it's all about who your supplier and operator is? For example, we provide travel options for the community in East Africa, even though the majority of the countries have listed as punishable by law.
I guess just one small comment from my side would be that I think it is important, and as I said, you've got a lot of small, medium-sized businesses, larger companies too, but you've got a lot of people who for many years have been working in this market and understand it well. They have good contacts and networks locally. For example, a trusted network of accommodation suppliers, local tour guides. And these are people you really want to have on your side, because they can really help you, plug your clients into the right places and ensure that they can travel with confidence. Perhaps John or Meg, interested to know what you have to add.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And from a association perspective, we never tell a traveler not to go anywhere. One, they would not listen to us, but two, why would we want to stop exploring the world? You can't say to an LGBTQ traveler, don't go see the pyramids because the laws in Egypt aren't good for us. We want to see the world. So Eastern Africa, same thing. We just say be mindful of the laws, be mindful of the culture. But that's true whether you're LGBT or non-LGBT. So the fact that they may have a reputation or have governmental policies against our community doesn't mean that our community is not going to go. We just want to make sure it's a safe experience and work with operators that understand the community and will provide a welcoming experience for them.
I can definitely add to that. I was actually in East Africa for most of the summer. And I went with I'm a brand ambassador for a company called Kontiki International that specializes in travel for 18 to 35-year-olds. And I was not on an LGBT trip. I was just kind of mixed into a regular trip. And there were in our group, there were 10 people total, and 6 of them were LGBT. and that was a coincidence. It wasn't planned that way. And I think that shows that LGBT people for sure want to do things like go on safari, which for South African operators is going to be an advantage because you do have laws that are in our favor. But it's not going to stop people from wanting to have these once in a lifetime bucket list kind of travel experiences like seeing the Great Migration. And so I think, yes, it is super important that you know who your operators are and that your operators are and your suppliers are aware that you do have an LGBT clientele. And I think that is one of the ways that folks can be an ally to the LGBT community is addressing these topics directly and asking, like, how are you going to handle this in your country or in your business? What happens when something, maybe like an uncomfortable situation happens, maybe, one of the other customers complain, and you don't have to be, the be all and end all and bastion of LGBTQ knowledge. Like, reach out to organizations like IGLTA or consultants like Peter or people like me who can help you answer some of these questions. Rome isn't built in a day, and your knowledge of LGBT issues won't be built in a 1-hour webinar.
Well said.
Okay, great stuff. So if you can all later on go and look at www.atwconnect.com, we'll have a list of all the reports that were mentioned by Peter as well as John, and links to be able to contact all our speakers as well, because I see there's quite a few questions coming through saying how can I connect with Meg, how to become a member of IGLTA. So we will definitely have all those contact information there. I want to thank our panel. It's been really informative. And I see just some of the comments that are coming through that everyone has really enjoyed themselves and has got some key takeaways. So thank you for your time. It's really appreciated. And it's an amazing community. And I feel that, small steps go a long way. And I'm very excited for what's happening. There was mention about Equal Africa. We were supposed to launch this year as part of Africa Travel Week, but all good things are worth waiting for. So bring on 2021, and I look forward to welcoming the whole entire panel to Cape Town next year. And thank you so much for your time again. I really appreciate it. And stay safe, and we'll be in touch soon. Thanks, everyone. Have a good time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.